Thank you, Jürgen. We'll talk about it in a moment. I will tell you what you'll read in this document. And I'd like to be as interesting as Jörg, who talked about exterior lighting. So I'd like to talk about one standard that is very important for interior lighting. It is the standard for interior lighting, and I'd like to talk about all the standards we have. Some people do not really know, where do we come from? Where do the standards come from? Where do I come from? I am an employee of a company, as you can see on the slide. That's the company I'm working for. But I am also very strongly committed as the chairperson of this working group, light.de. You see that we offer a lot of information about lighting for everybody in the German and English language, a very important thing for the lighting industry, that we share knowledge technically and from an application side of view. I also have other functions. I am working for Fachverband Licht and Platform Buildings. What I like to talk about is the way we design standards, we write and elaborate standards, and what it means for interior lighting. Some of you ask me, why do you enjoy this type of work? You meet with people in your working group, you sit all day long, you have a meeting, and you talk about boring stuff like standards, technical standards. And I say, yes, you have to suffer through these meetings in order to create a standard, but why do we need a technical standard? Our colleagues and I, on a European level, are drafting, creating the acknowledged state-of-the-art rules of technology that are the basis for the contractual partners. If we plan interior lighting without specifying what we exactly want, they plan on the basis of the generally recognized and applicable rules that you can find in standards, just like the DIN EN 124641. So that's a well-defined state-of-the-art between experts. And that shows you that it still holds true, withstands the test of time. If you say, is it necessary or not? Does it make sense or not? Because on a European level, we all agree that this is it. But this is not the law. We know a technical standard is not the law, unless contractual partners say that's the basis of our contract and is binding, but it is not a law. It is not an applicable law. Very similar to the standards, identical, because they say we want our own rules and regulations, but for the employee, it is important to live up to the rules for workspaces. We have many standards. We have the German Institute for Standards, DIN, in Berlin. They have a very nice standard monitor. It's interesting to see what they offer. We have a lot of standards in Germany, maybe far too many, but it's documented why we have these standards. In a world that has more and more requirements when we talk about sustainability, when we talk about responsibility for our society. And the standards really want to comply with these new requirements in our society. We have an annual report for light technology. I wanted to copy a couple of pages and show you, but I thought maybe that's too much, difficult to read because it's very small print and it is too much. It's just too much to stomach. If you think it's interesting and if you want to dig deeper, the 2022 report is online. It is available, and the annual report 2023 is available, and you can read it online if you want to. So that's something that we've discussed with our council of the Dean of the Standard Council. So we do not only create it in Germany, we say it's a European thing by now. How come? Where do you come from? Where are the people who create the standards? Let's have a look at the different working levels. In Germany, we talk about the DIN standard for lighting. In Europe, we have the European standard CEN and TC 169 for lighting, and ISO TC, and the global standards, the ISO standards, where we also have ISO TC 274. We have the product standards. These are standards of applied lighting technology, planning sports stadiums, for instance, safety technology, different things. Experts working in standards are from national committees, the national standard bodies, and they're being delegated by the bodies who send them. It can be the state, it can be an architect, it can be a light planner or industry. So we talk for the industry on behalf of industry. We are light.de as an organization of ZVEI with experts from the lighting industry. We send our experts. So we think they are very much supported by ZVEI. And in our national standardization committees, we work on a level playing field. Standardization is not always done on a national level. We also have international committees, European standards or ISO, the global standards. And for some cases, we work with the CEE, our parallel organization, that's the International Lighting Commission, working together with ISO and CE, with the global standards, covering the global standards. As I said, national experts work in the international committees, experts in the country where we are coming from. So we have a European or a global standard. So CEN and ISO have no individual standardization experts. They come from the national committees. And then CEN for the European standards, we go back after doing the European standard, like the EN 124641, and then it's published as a national standard in Germany. DIN in Austria, it's the Austria standard or another standard. We have different language versions, and everything else will be translated into the required language. But German English is always available as a standard. That's the DIN EN 124641. This is how we draft it. This gives you a little overview. If we have time, I can tell you more about it. And so we have the standards for interior lighting. This is also integrated in machines. We have machine guidelines and regulations. And then we have rooms for sports stadiums. And we have basic criteria. We define the size, the scope of lighting in one standard, the EN 12556, and then we'll use it on the basis of this definition, the 12665 daylight. That's important. 17037 for daylight in buildings. Then we measure and document light data. And many more things will be possible in Europe. We have 13 committees, working groups and committees. I think you do not want to read about all of it. You might be familiar with most of them. And we are in the working group number 2. I'm head of this working group, Lighting for Workplaces, with the lighting standards for ISO on a worldwide level. So that's lighting for workplaces, covering it with a global standard. We have the same chairman in these working groups, in working group 2 and 5. So I'm in the working group ISO, so I can tell you more about it. That's a very similar thing at the end of the day, if you talk about a European global standard. Let me talk about interior lighting, about workspaces, workplaces. These are a couple of pictures of the new Light Forum 60. So these are European experts. It took 6 years to revise it. The EN 12464 Part 1 for the interior. Now that's part of FNL 4 in the Standard Committee 4 as a German standard. At the moment, we are in this final talk for the global standard ISO CE 8505, lighting of interior workspaces. And we'll publish it as an ISO standard. And we also use the EN, the European standards. For this standard, we also have two other topics. Commissioning of lighting systems is important. We also have the working group 2, that's commissioning of our lighting systems, interesting for those who work in lighting control. And we discuss the lighting system design process. And this shows you when the value of the standard is being used, when we have it in this process, because then it's different, as opposed to using a special lamp that is supposed to have a certain effect in a room. We'll hear more about it in a moment. For those who are not familiar with it and should know all about it, EN 12464.1, lighting for the interior, was revised and published in a revised version end of 2023. The most important thing for us is as follows. We have all major values that we can plan, that we take into account in one standard, in one table. So everything's documented. We have the old standard, and now that's the new standard with 8 lines, with all the relevant values. That's part of our planning. And one thing is decisive. So what do we want to see? What do we want to see, and what is the activity? So I want to know what I actually have to see. So lighting the visual task. So we have this spreadsheet with all the visual tasks. And we have the color rendering, glaring restrictions, dazzling restrictions. And then we have to know that the visual task takes place in a room. And the room can be a separate room. Maybe you have a couple of visual tasks in one room. And you just have this surface in the second part with the cylindrical levels, and the ceiling and the wall lighting is added. So this offers good opportunities for the planners to discuss a specific description of the interior lighting requirements for the visual task. One person wants to read, another person wants to draw, the third person is in a workshop and is doing a color control. Very different visual tasks, very different requirements. Nevertheless, you specify in one room, of course, you have higher values, higher maintenance values for the environment. So you can, I cannot discuss the details, it's too much. So first you define the visual task. You have the ceiling, you look at the walls, at the ceiling, at the lighting requirements. The restrictions for glare in the room are specified when you choose the lamps. So you have a very nice lighting result if you want to. It's something that we currently plan, that every person who is planning things should do so. That's our message. Do it when you plan. Apart from that, so installing energy efficiency, maintenance modes, daylight efficiency, everything has to be taken into account. So in the standard, we say, please plan with all criteria, plan holistically. That's a big, big playground for planners. If you plan well and say this is according to standard, you do not say according to standard is 500 lux. That's not it. A good plan is according to standards, according to specifications, and living up to human requirements. How can we do the settings for light? Don't show negative examples, but showing a negative example can help people to do it much better. Let's have a look. What do we see here? So what do we see here? So these are switches. What does it say? People should really write their own notes and pin them to the wall because you do not understand what it is all about. Or here you have 3 regulators and you have to test all 3 of them in order to understand how it works. Difficult. One can do much better, right? In order to do it much better, we said when we wrote the specifications, let's plan the controls. In an early concept, what are we doing with the light control? What are the lighting scenes that you want to have in a meeting room, focused, doing a presentation at the screen, or have a discussion, or have a party? It's 3 different light ambiances, and you have a light control and you can switch to the light atmosphere that you need. But when you do the commissioning, nobody tells you, and people just test and check, can I switch it on or off? And that's all they know, but they do not know about the lighting atmosphere. So a good lighting control also is important. So that's really a standard, that's a requirement. Early project ideas until the commissioning is this process with different planning contributions and participants. You can also find it in the technical specifications because we want you to be able to quote us. So in our brochure, Lichtwissen 21, that's very important for you. So it always has to be available until the commissioning. So that also the labeling is important. That's maybe the first access. So that the labeling goes hand in hand with the individual ideas and not the ideas that someone had who is commissioning it. So that is important. That is a very important topic when we talk about human-centric lighting. So we have to think about it early on in order to prevent problems. Let's go back. 12464, I think you must be very curious, right? Must be very curious. So that you know more about it. Licht Forum 60, that's a guideline. You can also download it on our website, Light Forum 60, that's in your guideline on the standard, the DIN standard. So we have the planner, his name is Pitt, and he says, hey, do this conversation with a person who has this new lighting control. So this is our planner, Pitt. He's called Pitt. And in this cartoon, you will see what he's doing. Well, communication about standards doesn't always have to be boring. We also have a nice little cartoon. So we try to introduce the light planner in the cartoon. And that's something we often do at light.de, licht.de. We want to show you, yes, it's possible to have good lighting and it is necessary. And we also have this new publication, Light Knowledge, Lichtwissen.2, that's for schools. It's not only design examples, but examples how you can have good lighting in a school in the morning and in the afternoon. Outlook, standards. Standards can look bureaucratic, but you need them in order to understand. They are acknowledged rules and state of the art. We have to integrate people when we come to drafting standards, scientists, users, people who work in practice, and the standards will help us all. If you use the standards, we will have a better result for the human beings. So thank you so much. And now, at this very moment, I'm out of time. So thank you very much.